right, welcome to episode 14 of What's in the Box. I am Tolgar Alpagut, VP of Marketing here at Tatsoft, and joining me weekly is our founder and CTO, Marc Taccolini. Marc, how are you doing today?
Great, thank you.
So today we're going to be covering something a little exciting to me because we're going to be focusing on advanced tag properties as well as some of the unique FrameworX extensions. But before we hop into that, I just wanted to say that if you have any questions while we're doing the show live, please drop them in the chat and we will get those answered for you. As well as if you have any questions after the show that you didn't get answered, just leave them on forum.tatsoft.com. So with that in mind, Marc, I'll let you take it away here.
Good. And what I start sharing my display, we in this presentation focus on the tag in the basic low-level data itself. We have lots of things that are working regarding asset modeling or organize your data in hierarchical structures, and that would be another video.
Okay.
So lots of things when you talk about tags start to go on that modeling, but that would be another one. Today are going to focus on the basic real-time elements that we call tags. And quick clarification, have people from IT. Tag is the name that we've been using in the industry for decades, but please, it's completely different from HTML5 tags or the many other way tags is used on the IT industry. And for the people that's still new in that industry, that came from the really old times that we have a physical label on the instrumentation.
Yeah.
So we have that temperature sensor that was a physical instrument. Someone have to go there physically to do the reading. And with all those physical instruments, we had a label or a tag attached to the physical instrument with the identification. So that's why we use tags. So the meaning of the word tag in our industry is pretty much a real-time value.
Got it.
Typically, something we are reading from a sensor, but as the products evolved, now we still use the name tags to any kind of real-time value you have to handle in your application. So let me share my screen to go to the products.
Sure.
Okay.
You should be live there.
Yeah, and can you see here a new project, Tolgar?
Yes.
Good. And the first thing I'd like to explain about tags, we have in our case this product model, that's the number of tags, but not exactly. Those are only the number of real-time live connections. So if your application is using 5,000 variables, but you have only 300 points that are reading or writing from a PLC device or from that external real-time data source, that's the product model that will be suitable for your application, okay? Or if you are a system integrator partner, you have access to the unlimited license. So you can just develop the project, not even have to worry about any of those constraints. And after you have your project concluded, you just go to the project information here and look for that communication points to find out how many communication points you have. And by the way, I just started a project and you see we have 0 communication points. I'm not reading data from any place, but I had already 23 variables because when I create these projects, I create using a template that has some basic information in this variable called server monitor info. And that's a good way to start, talk about tag types. So let's explain what are those types and what is this system monitoring. When you create a new tag in your application, you can just type here a new name, or you can just press enter and you'll be able to change that name in real time with no problems. Even when you use that tag in the application, you can always just rename like employee name in a database. You have this button here to create new tags. You can copy and paste from Excel. You can import from a CSV file. You can run our extensions to create your tag bases from your legacy Wonderware InTouch projects or from any PLC application program like Unity Pro, ControlLogix, or you can even write a .NET application. So I'm not covering detail that right now, but keep in mind, we have many ways to import and share if you have a tag base defined in some other place. And today I will focus on what are the tag types and the properties more at the basic kernel level. So when you do the definition, see here we have many columns, but I think if I go through the dialog, you have a better visualization. So that entity that we call tag, we have the basic types, and that are digital. Some project called Boolean, 0, 1, integer, normal integer value, long is the 4 bytes precision integer, double, floating point or real in some other cases. Decimal is important to explain the difference between double and decimal. Decimal is a .NET type for very high precision calculation. When you're doing math with billions or trillions of dollars and you don't want to lose the cents, the decimal is, if I'm not mistaken, a 24 digits precision number that industrial automation typically will never go there. The double would be what we're going to use most of the time and has also better performance. So the floating point or the real value is in fact the double, not the decimal that's only for very specific applications. Of course, we can support string variables. And so far, it's pretty much what everyone does. Now we start to have fun because we can have variables like date time that represents directly a date time, or time span that represents a duration, or image that's a binary array, or can be a blob image from a database. And we have also guild, that's a database unique identifier. And we have also a data table. So you can have only one tag, and the tag holds the full contents of a data table. So one thing that we're going to see in our tags, we extended the typical concept of tags to be able to map everything that you have, for instance, a SQL database. And that allows our solution uniquely capable to do real-time enterprise solutions beyond SCADA. And we have our documentation that mapping with the SQL and those extensions in more detail. And let's try to give some examples on how that is useful. Let's start, for instance, with date time. In many systems that they don't have a native date time, you need to create a string. And every time you need to write that to a SQL database or find additional information, you need to do lots of scripting around that. In our case, if I create this tag machine started, that's a date time variable, if I'm going to use to connect to a database or screens, any place. So let's go to a script just to have an example. If I'm going to use this variable, that's my machine started. Oops. here. Let's pick up from here so you can see the IntelliSense that's going too quick. So the property value of that tag, hold on. Okay, the value property of that tag is a .NET element. So if you want to get the day of year, any information you want to get from that value, you can get right away. And to know all the properties, you can refer to our documentation, or you can, knowing that our product is pretty much a .NET product, you can just go to .NET date time C# properties, and you'll be able to go directly to the Microsoft documentation. Okay, I'm running a virtual machine that is blocking my internet access. So I will skip on that. But essentially, all the properties that you have here, like day of year, date of time, any value regarding the date time, or if you want to have that in a string, you can do, because we are working, extending the .NET variable for date time. And that's the same to all those types. So all our variables, they are .NET objects that extends the properties of their specific .NET standard class. Okay.
Okay.
And keep moving. Let me switch to this application to show one more type here. When I was opening the types, you saw that after those data types, we have a reference. Reference is a pointer. So if you want to do some generic displays or generic calculation, you can create a variable that will be dynamically pointing to other variable. So let me run an example of that. In this application, that's our support website to download, you see we have those three tanks. And when I open this display, I'm acting only on the first tank, on PID number 1. If I open this other one, I'm acting on the second tank. And the same here, I'm acting on the third one. But this display is only one display in the application created with that concept of pointers. So I will open this application to show the configuration so you can understand how that screen was created. You see, we don't have one screen to each tag. We have only this one called PID. And when I go to the configuration of this variable, we are using this variable called PID reference. That's a pointer to a PID type. So this display was created with a generic PID. And what we do when you are on the main page, in those objects here, when we click to open that, all the pointers, they have a built-in property called link. So link will be the name of the variable you should be pointing to. So in this case, I'll be pointing my pointer. My pointer will be linked to tag.pid1 or whatever loop I want to act. And then I open the generic display. Okay. Mm-hmm. So far, so good, Tolgar?
I'm following
Just make
along.
sure my audio is good.
Yes, no, sounds great.
Good. And can you read also the font size, or it's too small?
No, it's all visible here.
Okay. So essentially what we're doing here, we are selecting the variable to where it's pointing and open the display. But when you do the application like that, and in fact, many other products, they have similar concepts. you have a big limitation because this tag.pag1 is a string. So if you want to now rename in your database pag1 to another name, it will be quite complex because you're going to lose that reference. That's a problem my previous generation of products they have that were able to solve with FrameworX. How did you solve that? In our case, even when you look a string, behind the scenes, what you have is an object. And if I go back to that display now and pick up PAG number 2, and go to the dynamics of that, you see that instead of putting a string and putting a property called getName from these objects. So tag.pag2 is, even I'm showing the text here, behind the scenes is a string. I'm sorry, is an object. That means, like any object in our system, as I start explaining, I can go to PAG number 2 and give a much better name. So I rename that to much better Marc. That will be the new name for my variable. And unlike other platforms that you need to start doing search, replace, searching those strings, in our case, you don't, because this is an object. You see the new name is there. And because when we are saving that displays, we are saving those scripts, you are saving the database IDs for those entities. You are saving the objects, not the strings. Okay. Mm-hmm. If that concept is new to you, a little magic, don't worry. Focus on the benefits. And the benefit is that you have the ability to replace those names very easily. And you also have the ability to have on the IntelliSense access to all the properties the tag has. And we will not have to explore all of them, but you see, in addition to the value, we have all the information about the alarm states. We can pick up the bits right away. You can pick up what PLC mappings connected with that tag. You have lots of information connected with that tag. In this video session, I'm going to explore some of them. Okay.
Sounds good.
So let's go back to the concepts. So I'm still learning what are the basic tag types. So we saw all of those, okay? And I don't have time to explore now, but on the next week, we're going to talk about SQL databases. And you'll see next week how amazingly easy it is to do advanced KPI or enterprise application because we have a data table type. So next week, I'm going to show that you can create a KPI tag that runs a query from a SQL database. And instead of having to create many variables, you save the result of that query in only one tag that holds the full table of your query from the database. And then when it's time to put on the display, you pick up one object like that one that can map directly to a data table. But that's for next week. So let's stay with the basics today. When creating new tags, you see we have those PIG here that I use in this application. PIG is not a predefined variable from our system. It's just what you call templates. So when you are defining your tags, you have this other tab that you can create your custom user data types. So if you have here some type of smart sensor in your application, and the data model for that sensor, you have here a status, and you have the value that's a double, and you have some sort of label that's a string. And you see label is a reserved name in our application. That's why we didn't allow to use as a property. But anyway, here what we're creating is the data model for your sensor. So when you are defining your variables, you can define your LV01B of being of that type sensor. So you are creating, in fact, a data structure. And we have other videos about that, so I'm not going to explore on details. But when you have those data structures, you can either pick up one specific property of that. So here I'm picking up in one specific element from the data model just created, or you can create new symbols to our symbol library that you leverage that data structure. So you can create complex advanced symbols that you map only to the top hierarchy, and all the internal properties you populate automatically. Okay, that's topic for, we did cover that on the video on symbols. One thing important about templates, that we allow a hierarchy of templates. So if I want to create now a data type called machine 1 or machine type T, this machine, when I'm creating the data model for this machine, I can say that I have here a temperature that's of type sensor. And you can, oh, by the way, good point here. Why it's not showing here the additional types? This project was created to be an express. It's good that happened with me. It's a question we have from time to times. Express is a simplified version of our projects that has some features limitations, but there is no limitation on the on-time engineering. So if you are learning the application, or if you want to create a demo for someone, you can select Family Express, and we allow the runtime to run for 2 hours, and we don't put limitation on the engineering. So you can create lots of training and demo applications with the Family Express. But for real life projects, you need to select one of the other models of the system, okay? And you change those settings here on the on settings, because even if you have a full license, you may want to create a project that's more limited to send to someone that does not have a license, okay? Mm-hmm. So close the parentheses. Now you see that I have with the full functionality, I can create here my variables. So I'm creating a more advanced data type, accessing other type of variables inside. So you can create a nice hierarchy of data types, even having arrays. So I will say that in my data type now, this is not only one sensor, but one array of 10 sensors. And in my object model now, I'm going to create a variable like production line that's of type machine, that has 100 machines, not 0, 100. That has 100 machines on that production line. So with one line of definition now, if I go to the size of my application here on info project version, you see we have already nearly 5,000 tags. That's each tag being one unique value. That's because you're using that advanced data model and data structure. And in fact, I don't see many applications using, but just for reference, we are one of the few, if not the only one, that allow even three-dimensional arrays in that data model. And some applications like vibration model or there are real good use for that, okay? And another reason we did all those extensions in the database to allow arrays, allow hierarchy, is because we have a very easy collection, not only with SQL databases, but also with .NET objects. So if you are doing some advanced programming in .NET that you need to call external library, I'll switch to C# because that's the language that I know. We have a bunch of extensions that you call namespace toolkits that allow, for instance, copy a data structure to a data table or copy a .NET object to a tag. By .NET object to a tag, I'm not talking about one single value. I'm talking a full data structure that can be holding dozens, if not hundreds of thousands of values. So the fact that we have this extended real-time database and our database is really objects, allow us to have, for advanced application, a very tight connection with SQL data and also .NET variables, because you don't have any type on the .NET framework and on the SQL database that we don't have an equivalent in our application. That makes sense?
I'm following along here, yeah.
Great. So let's explore a little bit more of those tag properties, okay? Some of those properties, like bit 0, of course, are what you call runtime properties. You are only going to see that value when the application is running. So if I go to this project here and I call our tool that you call property watch, I can put here this variable, and I'll see the value of that variable is 4. But if I open here, you see all the additional properties that that tag has out of the box. And some of those properties, they can even be read and write. So if I go to that property bit 0, and I start setting the bits here of the variable, you'll see the value there is changing, okay, as I'm accessing the properties. Some of basic properties all system has their value, quality, and timestamp, okay. Is all real-time systems are supposed to have those 3, but we did a few interesting extensions to allow some nice applications. For instance, in building automation, sometimes you have to override a sensor. So I can define that this value should be with value 88. And I will set up that value to be locked in that value. So that means you'll see the value of that variable is now 88, and we will not allow that value to be overwritten until this tag is locked. So that's one example of more advanced property that's quite useful. Some of those properties, they only make sense when you are running the application, like the bits. Some of them, they do make sense when doing the configuration. So if I go back to my basic tag definition, you see we have a bunch of columns that are the most are the properties that typically want to set up in advance before running the application, like a minimum and manual value, engineering units, start value, default data formatting. And I'll talk about those 3 that are really important. Domain is a concept that we have to do distributed application. So a variable of type 7, all the clients accessing this application have the same value. But if I want to have a variable like that start time for my reports, I want to create a display that each user will have its own date time to start that report. So that variable typically should be defined as client, okay? And you cover more distributed applications in another video. Visibility is also an important property, private, protect, or public. What that means. We are out of the box an MQTT OPC server and start with 9.1 also an MQTT broker. So private, protect, and public means if you are using those features to be automatic like an OPC server, here is where you define if you want to enable to act an OPC server. That you define to each variable if the variable will be not visible to the OPC, meaning private, or it will be visible only to read-only, that you call protected, or it will be a variable that external applications through the OPC will able to write, okay? Mm-hmm. That security is in top of the additional security you may have for the tag on the security model. I'm not covering that now. It's just one additional layer of protection in addition to the security certificates of the OPC connection itself or the independent safeguard that we have. And another important property for the products is retentive, meaning if this variable will save the value on disk every time you have a new value. That's not data logging. This is, for instance, if you have a variable that's called a set points, okay? This tag that's a set points, where is my set point? It's here, okay? Well, if you don't lose the tag you just created, you can enable the column date modified and sort by date modified. Okay, now the variables you create are here on the top. Because this grid, that's not the top for today, you can do filtering, you can do grouping, we'll have lots of advanced features here. But anyway, going back to my tag I just created, this tag that's a set point, I can put initial value. So when my application starts, it will be 21, whatever temperature I want to be, 72 Fahrenheit. But I may want to have the built-in feature that when I modify that value, I want to make that persistent. So I want to save the last value automatically when I change that. So if I shut down the application, I do a full shutdown, the next time it will be okay. And by the way, set points, date, time, not good. Let's put double here, okay. Or in some cases, I want to be retentive only on the properties of the tag. What mean properties? As I did show to you, all tags, they have a bunch of predefined properties. For instance, one property that a tag has is about alarming. So I have the property .high. That's what I have for high or high alarms. And dot here is all my configuration for my alarms. So what is the limits I'm using to each group that alarm is? So you see that hierarchy on the objects go way beyond the value. You can access the store on the device and additional information on that. So when you set up this variable to 90, and putting the alarm limit to that variable to go to whatever value I want to be, okay? And I probably should unlock that variable to allow starting modifying it. Okay, but going back here to the basic properties. Another two properties that I'd like to describe are comments and description. And we are going to do, I'm going to do a little bit of our roadmap now. Be prepared, the comment in the future we're going to rename to alias. Because one way the people are using our product, and I like, and are going to embrace that, is to use the comment to do a new name for the tag that has more meaning to the operator. And on description, you put the full engineering description saying that the whole depth in fit using this type of sensor or whatever. The description is really the long definition of the data. And this field that's called comments, you use on the user interface if you want to show instead of showing the name of the tag, you can always pick up very easily, instead of showing the name of the tag, you pick up the property comment that in the future will be renamed to alias. So when running the application, whatever definition you do for that, you are going to use on the user interface. And many objects are going to create the future, like some tree views, some asset modeling. We use by default this name instead of that one when that column is defined. So it's a good thing to have in mind that's coming from the future. Okay. Another prop that's quite useful for large application is category, that you can define here in run dictionaries. Categories, you can define any kind of metadata you want to be. Can be either if that variable is input or output. It's pretty much any dictionary of metadata you want to apply to our tags. And once you have that metadata defined, you can pick up and filter the tags that metadata makes sense and apply to those variables. Okay. And of course, you can use that when running the application and doing user interfaces to filter the data, or even on analytics and some other properties. Keep moving. Some other small but still interesting properties. We have the ability to create enumeration sets. So it's very typical that sometimes you have a variable that's a status that's an integer, but instead of showing 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, you may want to connect that with enumeration. And I think I have these other projects where I have enumeration sets defined. So if I go to my dictionaries, I have here the enumeration set. So in this application, the variable is an integer, but as this tag has different numerical values, you want to have labels and not numbers in your application. So if I go to the application, when I put tag.level, it's the number. When I put tag.level value as a string, it's the numerical, is the string representation for that value. So if I do this example, you'll see here. So as the tag has the value 0, 0, 1, or 3, the text follows automatically, so you don't have to do scripting. And lots of what we do regarding tag properties is to simplify your applications so you don't have to write codes. Even we have very powerful C# and now Python codes, we try to avoid that as much as possible. Okay. Another example of advanced props I want to show is when you want to do applications like that. Here I'm showing the value of the tags. But I eventually may be running and I want to reuse the same display or the same objects to run some sort of calculation or some analytics and use the same display, but to show in that field the calculation model. Or I may want to show in that object the historical values that I'm getting from a date time stamp or from a trend chart. So how we do this magic, that this same object is showing either the historical value of the variables or the calculated value or the current value, again, using tag properties. So if I go to that project configuration, which is this one here, you'll see these objects is showing one property that we call display value. Display value by default is the same of just putting the tag name. If you don't pick up any property, by default, the default property for a tag is the display value. But we have other properties holding value. If I select now this variable here, you see we have another property called value. So value is really what's coming from the sensor, or this other property is estimated value, is something that will be populating from the scripting, or historian value is another property that is showing the value of the tag in one point of time. So if I want to do a generic display to act as a playback or to show simulate data, you just use the proper display value, or not even that, you just put the tag that will be the default. And in some point on your user interface, let me put back here. In some point on user interface, what you do, you just set what are showing on the display. So we have this property called display value type that allow you to say if I'm going to show the sensor value, the calculated value, or the historical value on that screen. And so if you are really doing advanced applications in our platform or really want to save time, it's really worth to try to go deeper in all the functionality that we have behind the scenes. Because from time to time, I see people trying to, let me stop a little bit the sharing so we can have a face-to-face. From time to time, I see people solving problems by brute force. When we have other feature there. And sometimes it's not easy to find those features, frankly, and understand the business case to use that. So in our support, we are very proud to have really good people in our support. They're not following an AI tool. When you ask that, reply that. It's real people with real knowledge. So when you have specific requirements that you don't find an easy way to do, that's a valid support case also. The way we create the tag properties, the real-time database, and the tags are very important because everything you are going to do, scripts, display, reports, you are going to rely on that data model. And I dare to say, we are the most powerful and flexible object-oriented database in any other product in the markets. So if I have a fellow friend competitor there, please, if I make a mistake, let me know. But I'm not really aware of other applications that has, at the database level, at the tag definition, .NET objects, data tables, datetime, full .NET objects in object arrays as real objects in the data model. I don't know. It may be, but I really don't know any other. And that's really very important, because what you can do around, everything gets more powerful because you are starting for a more robust foundation. The way we store, the way we manage the real-time values is more advanced because those extended types, and because it's a real objects. It's not only a table or a big table with values. No, they are real .NET objects that we are exposing. So our platform was created to do any kind of real-time application where you need to do data management, data visualization, move data from one place to another one, run your analytics on top of that. If there is the word real-time, process information or manufacturing information, we should be able to handle. So if you're doing a project that you're trying to do way too much workarounds, please contact us also. You may find that we have a magic property to shortcut that, or in some cases, you are helping us to evolve the platform. Some specific things we have in the data modeling, some tag types, that comes of categories, some of those advanced types, they were born from specific application cases that we didn't have that a few years back, and we're exposed to those requirements, and we evolved that kernel. So keep that in mind. The system was designed, other than the analytics that you need to really to run your code, there is, or pick up a specific tool, but the framework itself is designed to have those building blocks and those internal structures to simplify your typical scenarios. Okay. Mm-hmm. I think that's it, Tolgar. Do you think that we are good on time? Any questions so far, or can we stop here before I jump too much information?
No, I think that was good. If there's anything else you want to discuss, by all means. We don't have any questions in the chat right now, but if you do have questions after this episode, you can always leave them on forum.tatsoft.com. Mark, is there anything else?
And one thing that I will do in the final comments is to explain some of those enhancements that we did because of those user feedbacks. Okay, for instance, we now, when we show the tag properties, you see everything on the tag. You see all the properties, the alarm configuration, the story configuration, the device configuration. That's all together on the system. We also add that concept of categories that was thanks to a user requests. Lots of we did regarding cross-reference was based on real-time scenarios. So if you have any variable on this application, you click here, you see right away the cross-reference where you use all those tags. And not only you can see, but you can double click and jump directly to the page, to the parts of the application are using that. Doesn't matter if it's a script or it's a display. That's also one more example of advanced functionalities that were added over the years through those requirements. Okay. And another thing, also, I did explore in this video the concept of tags. Okay. But we have another video that I'd like to mention that I explore the concept that everything on the system is an object. That I will not remember the number. Probably you don't remember also, Tolgar?
No.
The one we talk about objects. Yeah, but we have a previous one that I explain not only tags, but alarms. Everything in our system is one object. Okay.
Yeah, I believe it was before episode 6, but I'm not sure on the number. But you can always check that on our playlist on YouTube as well. All the episodes are
yes. Okay, so now that's it. Now I'm happy.
Well,
So
thank you
thank
for
you very
that.
much.
Yeah, I'm just going to echo very quickly something you said about our support, the depth of knowledge that they have and their responsiveness. We've seen that several times here on our forum. So genuinely, if you do have a question about a product or a project, you can leave it on there or reach out through our other channels. But they've been very quick in
Yeah.
response, under 3 hours generally. So
Yeah,
or
and I really
engaged.
try to emphasize that because we are working to try to put out more examples, more tutorials, more videos. But we have one amazing feature that also are not great karma, that our platform is really very, very flexible. We have OEMs in many verticals. We have applications running from low-end HMI to SCADA for large enterprise real-time factory floor monitoring. We have data aggregation from different locations to the same system, and that across many verticals. So it's not really easy when you try to put here the small little tutorials on how you address one specific requirement. Exactly
Yeah.
because it's so flexible that so we prefer, and he's been working to grow our library of specific examples and articles through your demand, through your requests. We are more than glad from when it's the time to create specific examples or to do a little more detailed use case of one specific functionality when you have real life projects guiding that work instead of our own imagination.
Absolutely. I could not have said that better, but I will just say again, when you've got a platform as open and flexible, our approach is really to try to cover the main high level view first. And to your point, we want to drill down now with some specificity. So if you
Yes.
are watching us, if you tune into this, if you're working on something, you've got a question or something we can cover that's a little more specific that our community can benefit from, please do reach out to us or drop it in the forum. So with that
Thank
said,
you, Tolgar.
thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you, Mark, once again. And we will announce episode 15 early next week and move on from there. So have a great rest of everyone's day. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.